theme this month is it's beginning to look a lot like the holidays. I guess I could really say like Christmas now that Thanksgiving is over. But in any event, today's topic is "For unto you." And our quote all month this month has been, "Fear not, for I bring you good news of great joy." One of my favorite songs, "Deck the halls with boughs of holly. 'Tis a season to be jolly. Don we now our gay apparel, while we join in Yuletide carols." Whoever we are, wherever we are, those are familiar words. It's a familiar tune. And the sounds, the smells, the spirit of the season are familiar to us as well. And I believe this is a time of the year when we get to remind ourselves to celebrate life. This is a time of awakening, of rebirthing, of renewing. Whether it's in the traditions, the rituals, the colorful lights, the music, the gifts, the cards, the tasty foods, it's about what speaks to each one of us that reminds us to celebrate life. We do this by speaking our truth. And as we mature in our spiritual awareness, we dare a little more each day. We dare in each situation, in each way, to speak the truth of our being. We dare to admit that God is all there is. We dare to acknowledge that the divinity that flows within us, individually through us, is good news, is great joy. It's no coincidence that so many of our major religions have special holidays and activities this time of the year. And we've talked about that in the past couple of weeks. That offers us all choices, options, ways to experience our own way of renewing. And I believe that it's a time that we can renew our understanding and our acceptance of the power within us, which is the reason I've chosen that topic today, "For unto you." The first power that I want to talk about within you, that I encourage you to open up and receive during this festive season, is the power of joy. Reverend Roger Teal, who is the senior minister of our Mile High Center in Lakewood, Colorado, just outside Denver, defines joy as the effervescence of God. He says, you uncap spirit, and it just bubbles up. It just bubbles up within you, and that's how joy is. You uncap the joy deep within your soul and essence, and it just bubbles right up to the surface. In one of the Principles of Financial Freedom classes that I taught a while back, I had a lengthy discussion about the nature of truth. And one of the students voiced that for her, it was a continuing concern that she recognized the truth and what that really means. Individual truth, or what is true for each of us individually. And universal truth, which is what is true for all humanity. So that might raise a couple of questions with you. How do we recognize truth? And how can we be sure that we're demonstrating truth? Well, one of the most definitive ways, at least for me, is when I experience inner joy. It's not the sudden joy of a pleasurable turn of events or something fleeting, but rather the ongoing, constant presence of joy in all of my activities. David Hawkins describes that as joy arising within each moment of existence rather than from any outer source. All great spiritual leaders agree that inner joy is a natural part of our being. It's that which brings us deep and abiding comfort and love. Inner joy is the result of connecting with and receiving the power of our Creator. So allow yourself to receive the power of joy from God. It's what illuminates us. It's what allows the light of truth to shine by means of us. It's what has been given unconditionally to each of us. The next power within us to open up and receive is harmony. Each of us is a part of life, and it's a life that is abundant, a life that is exciting and new each day. It's a life that's divine in more ways than we have yet imagined. Can you believe that? There's so much more. Within each of us is this conception of divinity, which is always active. It's always pushing to spring forth. As we let ourselves acknowledge its existence and realize its persistence, it's born and reborn in us all the time. We're saturated with this wondrous divinity of life. Isn't that good news? Isn't that great joy? This is the loving care of the wondrous Spirit that created us, and it's constantly nurturing us, encouraging us, constantly supporting and guiding us. This is our harmonious connection with Spirit and that source of all being. This is a time of the year when we can take the opportunity to call this up to conscious attention and call this into our conscious realization. Especially now, this is a time to get this truth going in us, for as we do so, we find that how we see life and our sense of ourselves is transformed. So this is really what's behind the love, the excitement, and the pleasure of the holiday season. We're reminded of the precious virtues, the attributes of our Creator, the synchronicity with which life unfolds. And when this Spirit moves in you, it doesn't matter which story, which ritual, what kind of celebration you participate in. What matters is that you receive the power of your creative source and you're expressing it fully. You're in harmony with life. So allow yourself to receive the power of harmony from God. It's what inspires you. It is what has been given unconditionally unto each of us. The third power within us that we are open to receiving during the holiday season is peace. This is a time of the year when there is always much talk of peace on earth, goodwill toward humankind. Each year, as we become more mindful of the value of this intention, it takes on an even greater meaning and greater insistence in our lives. So allow yourself to recognize and realize with greater intensity and poignancy each year that peace only occurs when one becomes receptive to the idea of peace. As individual members of the human race, we must be calm. We must be poised. And we must be as driven for peace as anyone has ever been driven to remove it or destroy it. We must be in constant remembrance that God, Allah, Yahweh, Divine Spirit, whatever name you choose to call the creator of us all, we must be in constant remembrance that that which creates does not destroy or damage any of its creation. Teacher Jesus spoke these words, "My peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." These words are timeless and universal and worthy of being uttered by each of us. One of the things that we see and hear during this holiday month is how precious it is to be together with friends and family for the holidays. The flurry of buying and wrapping presents, the stress of shopping and cooking can all take a back seat as we remember who and what is truly precious to us. Now is the time to set aside those petty grievances, if you have any disagreements, if they still exist. It's a time to reaffirm peace, calm, and poise in our own hearts. As we do that in our own lives, and in the lives of those near and dear to us, we set the stage worldwide, universally, cosmically, to develop and maintain a sense of peace. And as we do that in our own hearts and in our own lives and in the lives of those near and dear, we are allowing ourselves, gifting ourselves with receiving the power of peace from God, allowing it to be what guides us, because that is what's given unto us. The last power that I want to encourage you to be open to receive in these holidays is that of the Christ consciousness. Christmas is a time when we look at the birth of new ideas, new ways of relating to our lives and how we live them. Christmas is a time to appreciate richness and abundance, even in the most modest circumstances and the most modest surroundings. Christmas is a time to see wonder in all life, to see differences from afar coming together in acknowledgement and agreement. And you know what? Those three statements that I just uttered are the story of the Nativity from a metaphysical standpoint. One, looking at the birth of new ideas, new ways of relating to our lives and how to live them. Two, appreciating the richness and the abundance even in the most modest of circumstances, the most modest surroundings. And three, seeing the wonder of all life as differences come together in acknowledgement and agreement. But I would also remind you that the story of the birth of Jesus is actually the story of the birth of Christ consciousness in each one of us. It's the awakening of the realization of universal oneness. It's the recognition of power in balance and harmony. It's the receiving of a consciousness of peace and love. It's our own revelation of the indwelling presence of God. Each of us is a way in which spirit is born into physical and conscious being, not just on December 25th, but every day and through every one of us. So I mentioned to you last week that I was going to share the story, the Christmas story by Stanley Haluska. So I'd like to do that now. From the very beginning of time, there was a promise and a hope that there would be one who would come, who would show the way, one who would be a light in the darkness, one who would be inseparable from the Creator, and by its very being would express the truth of human existence. It had been prophesied from times of old that there would be a child born who would rightly inherit its Father's kingdom. This would be a King of kings, a Lord of all lords, and one who by its very nature would bring peace, balance, harmony, and serenity to this world and to everyone it encountered. The world yearned for its coming, the birth of a child, the fulfilled promise. All the earth and heavens yearned for the coming of this child. Wise men foretold and saw the signs in the heavens. For indeed it has come to pass that a child would be born, a holy child, a child filled with knowing, a child filled with love and understanding, one worthy to inherit the Father's kingdom on the earth, and one who by its very nature would bring peace, one who by its very being would bring love, and by its very existence would bring understanding of what we truly are and where we truly dwell. The world, and indeed the heavens, yearned for the birth of this child, the Christ child. For the world would not be complete, nor would the world ever be the same without it. And so it came to pass, in the perfection and the fulfillment of time, that this child was brought forth into the world. It was announced by the angels of heaven that the fulfilled promise had come. God had become humanity. A new star appeared in the heavens, for a great soul, a master, had been born into the world. Then, in the innocence and wonderment of this new experience, you took your very first breath. And so it is.